We've had the internet, smartphones, and now AI. But here's the real question. Is life actually better today than it was in the 1950s? Or have we just turbocharged inequality, making life incredible for the top few percent while everyone else is left scrambling? I'm Biko Konstantinos, and that's what we're going to talk about today. To answer this question, we're going to check out this video from Johnny Harris titled 1955 versus 2025, Who Actually Had It Better? Now, Johnny's data and analysis are based off an American perspective, but the broad themes really apply to every Western country.
Is the average American better off today than they were all these decades ago? Does the typical American make more money, have a better chance of owning a home? It's an important question because this graph shows that our economy has grown immensely since the 50s.
Australia has also seen amazing economic growth since the 1950s, especially considering we've got some of the most sought after resources on the planet. That would ensure that Australia is one of the most richest countries in the world and rewards its citizens handsomely and tries to evenly share that wealth for all Australians. Wouldn't it?
And in all of this, I want to get to the bottom of perhaps one of the most important questions in our country, which is everyone able to move up? If they work hard enough or if they get educated, can you climb the economic ladder?
For many years in nearly every Western country, every citizen had the opportunity to do extra study or extra work to try to benefit themselves financially. It's what we'd call an egalitarian society, where every citizen has the same opportunities, or what you might call in Australian lingo, a fair go. Now, that used to be the case for many years, but just recently, everything started to change, and not for the better.
The American dream, we sometimes call it. A, quote, dream of a better, richer, happier life for all citizens of every rank. Is that still alive? And if not, why?
And if you were to say the Australian dream, to most people, that would mean being able to own your own home with a yard. To own that little patch of dirt which you could build your life from.
So it's the 1950s here in America. I work in this car factory. It's one of the many factories that was converted from making weapons to now making valuable stuff that we're shipping around the world.
Australia used to make valuable stuff, but all we seem to do now is buy and sell properties to each other and somehow pretend this is a great way to grow the economy.
I am making an average income. So my income right now is $4,400. In today's money, that's more like $41,000. We're going to adjust everything for modern dollars.
So the wage of a US factory worker in the 1950s, if it was adjusted for inflation, today would be around $41,000. And in Australian dollars, that's around $62,000.
So my wife doesn't work. Only a third of women did back then. And really, she doesn't need to. My factory job supports the whole family. And look, I own that home. I paid $84,000 for this thing, again in modern dollars.
So adjusted for inflation, the average wage was around $41,000 and the average home was around $84,000, just over 2 times your wage. Why don't you put that in your bloody pipe and smoke it? It's no wonder the wives didn't have to work, because it was easy to buy and pay off a home and you had enough income for all your other expenses. It's very difficult to wrap your head around how cheap everything was back then. Now, I'm not saying life was easy, but financially, needing only an average wage to support an entire family, well, that's just bloody absurd.
So now let's move forward in time to the 1970s.
Yeah, baby, yeah!
I'm still working in a factory. I now earn about $66,000. I had to pay $230,000 for this house. Housing is getting more expensive, and the government is raising the interest rate to slow down inflation, which is making my monthly payment a little more expensive.
So housing was starting to get more expensive, and women in the workforce was getting to around 50%. So in the 70s, there was still around half of all households who were able to survive financially just on one income. Yes, things were starting to get more expensive, but living standards were still extremely good.
And look, my income continues to grow at the same rate as the high income and low income earners in our country. The growing economy is being shared by these different income groups.
That's an amazing chart. If you were a lower income earner, but your wages grew pretty much the same as higher income earners, then you probably wouldn't be too upset about it. Their wages are going up, your wages are going up, so everybody's pretty happy.
Let's see how they continue as we move on to the 1990s. So I still work at a factory. My household brings in $76,000 a year.
You start to see that wages don't really go up much over the decades, but because houses were cheap, as long as you owned one, it didn't matter too much because you were able to survive. But imagine fast forwarding and wages remain low while house prices went through the freaking roof. Now sadly, we don't have to imagine now, do we?
Check out my cool 90s house. Cost me $273,000. That's almost 4 times our yearly income.
4 times the average income for a home seems like an absolute dream. In Australia, the average income is just over 100,000, so that would mean the median home would cost 400,000 bucks. So that's extremely affordable, and affordable housing is one of the keys to financial prosperity. And that's because if you own your own home, the repayments on your mortgage will start to reduce over time, and then you'll have more income to be able to invest with.
It's around the 1980s when you see the top earners start to pull away from the rest of us. Their income is going up faster than mine.
But even worse than that in Australia, the late 1990s is when our housing market started on a path towards total destruction. You can see from this chart that in the 1970s and 80s, house prices rose the same as gross disposable income per capita. That meant that homes remained just as affordable even if you purchased a decade later. But when you look from the late 1990s, house prices started growing monumentally faster than gross disposable income per capita. So just in real terms, most average workers in the 1970s, 80s and 90s could afford their own home. But from the 2000s onwards, it's becoming more and more difficult for full-time workers to buy a home. And today it's become almost impossible unless you have help from your parents. And that's completely shifted the financial opportunities for our society. In the past, almost everyone had a fair go to try and prosper financially, but today, prosperity is more dependent on how much property your family owns. As a country, how the heck have we allowed this to happen?
We're arriving to the 2010s. I don't work in a factory anymore. All of those jobs have dried up and been shipped to Asia. So I now work as a middle manager at an insurance company.
And in Australia, you might work for a major bank or you might be a public servant.
And my household income is $81,000 a year. Which is, wait a minute, same as 1997. But wait, during this same 13-year period from 1997 to 2010, the economy grew by this much.
That's because the value of every dollar you earn gets totally destroyed by inflation. So even though your pay might increase each year, because all goods and services are also becoming more expensive, you're not actually going forward financially. And if you want to know how destructive this can be, check out Australian real wages adjusted for inflation. In 2026, in the future, they're projected to be at the same level as 2011. That's 15 years of lost wage increases.
I can still afford a house. In fact, here in post-recession America, housing prices are actually pretty low.
This is how you know the Australian housing market is totally screwed. After the GFC in the US and many other countries, house prices plummeted by large percentages. But guess what happened in Australia? Hardly any fall at all. House prices here are totally propped up by the government and the RBA, who seem to always step in and provide financial stimulus at the tiniest sign of potential house price falls. This mindset of keeping house prices high at all costs has now created one of the biggest housing bubbles on the planet, with the median house price in Sydney now almost equivalent to Hong Kong. By encouraging a speculative housing market where house prices always grow faster than wages, you end up making some property owners very rich while you condemn millions of non-homeowners to a life of financial struggle.
But let's get back to the original question that we started this video with. Is the average American better off now than they were back in the 50s and over these decades that we talked about?
When it comes to being able to afford a home, absolutely not. I'm Biko Constantino.